Black CEO was told she wasn't attending executive dinner minutes. Later, she canceled a $2.5 billion deal on her own. You don't belong here. The words landed like a slap wrapped in silk. Aisha Cole froze mid-step, her heels still pressed against the marble floor of the Grand Regency ballroom. Around her, chandeliers hummed with soft gold light, violins whispered wealth, and the air smelled of truffle oil and quiet arrogance. Every face at that table turned. Every smile stiffened. The maitre d' man in a crisp white jacket shifted nervously. This dinner is for executive partners only, ma'am. And Aisha tilted her head. I'm aware. He hesitated. Well, perhaps the service corridor is... I said I'm aware, she repeated, calm, each syllable slicing through the music like a metronome of control. No one knew her name yet. That was the point. She had walked in alone. No entourage, no designer label loud enough to announce her worth, just a black silk blouse, tailored pants, and the kind of stillness that unnerved people who mistake noise for power. From the far end of the table, Daniel Klein, vice president of operations for the hosting conglomerate, whispered to a woman in emerald satin. Who invited her? The woman laughed softly. Maybe she's catering? Laughter followed, delicate, poisonous. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Aisha. She adjusted the cuff of her sleeve and glanced at the empty seat marked reserved. Her name wasn't printed there, not by mistake, but by habit. It always started like this. The quiet erasure before the loud dismissal. The maitre d' cleared his throat again. Security will have to escort me? She finished for him. I'd rather you escort honesty into this room first. His lips parted, but nothing came out. Across the table, Daniel chuckled. Low. Let's not make a scene. Aisha smiled. Oh, Daniel. The scene made itself the moment you opened your mouth. Phone shifted silently under the tablecloth. Someone texted a friend. Drama at the executive dinner. To the casual eye, it was a misunderstanding. To anyone who'd lived it, it was a pattern. Aisha looked around the ballroom, the polished executives, the champagne still trembling in their glasses, and thought about the irony. Half of these people had built their fortunes distributing her company's products, yet none recognized the woman behind the brand. She took a slow breath, the same calm she learned years ago in rooms colder than this one. They saw a guest. They didn't see the architect. Then she stepped forward, placed her clutch gently on the linen beside the crystal glass, and sat down at the reserved chair without waiting for permission. The air cracked soft gasps, stifled whispers, the sound of power re-entering a space that had tried to bar it. No guards came. No one dared move. Just that single sentence echoing through the chandelier light. You don't belong here. And Aisha's quiet reply that would soon rewrite the night. I built here. Oh, the dining hall was all glass and gold. Crystal light spilled across navy suits and silver laughter. Every table had a nameplate except hers. She noticed, of course. But she sat anyway. Aisha Cole, 43, founder and CEO of Cole Foods International. The woman behind half the supply chain this city depended on, and still, at this table, she was invisible. Excuse me, miss, said a young waiter, voice trembling slightly. This area is for executives only. She looked up, calm, not surprised. Good. Then I'm in the right place. He froze, eyes darting to the banquet host. Across the room, murmurs spread like perfume, soft, judgmental, expensive. Someone whispered, she must have come with catering. Another chuckled, maybe PRs +1. Aisha took a sip of water, slow, deliberate. The glass trembled only in the waiter's hand, not hers. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Aisha. A tall man in a charcoal suit approached, adjusting his tie like it was armor. Ma'am, this section's reserved for C-suite and board members only, he said. Aisha's eyes flicked to his name tag, Daniel Klein, VP Operations. I'm aware, she said. I own the chair you're standing next to. He laughed, polite but sharp. Of course you do. Then he turned to a white woman at the next table. Janet, could you please confirm her invitation? Janet smiled the way people do when they're about to say something cruel wrapped in courtesy. Oh, I didn't see her on the guest list. Maybe she's with sponsorship? Aisha's phone buzzed once on the table, her assistant, Carla. Everything's set. The contract presentation's in 30 minutes. You'll have the floor. A boat? But for now, she stayed seated, listening to them talk around her like she wasn't there. Daniel cleared his throat again. We'll have to ask you to wait outside until… She interrupted, quiet but firm. Until what? Until you decide I fit the room? The air shifted just slightly enough for nearby eyes to glance over, pretending curiosity wasn't hunger. From across the room, a photographer began snapping photos of the executives, avoiding her table entirely. The flash reflected off every glass but hers, as if the camera itself refused to acknowledge her existence. Janet leaned in. Sweetheart, this is a high-level dinner. It's not open networking. Aisha smiled, slow and precise. I'm not here to network. I'm here to decide who still has one. Janet blinked. Daniel exhaled through his nose, half scoff, half disbelief. Right. And I'm the president, he muttered. Then act like one, Aisha said, rising from her chair, because you're about to lose your seat at this table. Silence. The kind that cuts deeper than shouting. Even the music, a soft-string quartet, seemed to pause mid-bow. She turned, scanning the room, and for a fleeting second, her reflection caught in the glass wall beside her, calm, steady, unstoppable. They saw only a woman alone. They didn't see the empire behind her name. 3. The first insult is always dressed as a question. So, Aisha, who do you represent? Janet asked, voice smooth like satin stretched over barbed wire. Aisha met her eyes. Myself, Janet blinked. Oh, that's ambitious. The table laughed politely, the kind of laugh that tells you you're already the punchline. Daniel leaned back in his chair, glass in hand. You'll have to forgive the confusion, he said, tone dipped in corporate charm. We didn't realize you were part of tonight's presentation. I'm not part of it, Aisha said. I'm leading it. His smile faltered for half a heartbeat. Right, he said softly, and I'm next in line for the crown. A few chuckles scattered through the table. They thought they were in control. They always did. At the far end, a young intern barely 20, probably on her first big night, stopped laughing. Her eyes darted between them, uneasy. Aisha noticed, gave her a small nod. The girl looked away, but something in her shoulders shifted recognition, maybe guilt. Janet's voice returned, brighter, sharper. We just like to keep things organized, you know. Certain levels, certain circles. Aisha cut in gently. Circles have limits, systems have ceilings. You should know you built most of them. Janet's smile cracked for the first time. Daniel set his glass down. Look, he said, leaning forward, elbows on the table. This dinner is where serious discussions happen. Multi-billion-dollar decisions. People who run things, end of. I do run things, Aisha said quietly. That's why I'm here. The air cooled. The violinist hit a wrong note and stopped. Conversation from nearby tables thinned. You could hear the sound of ice settling in untouched glasses. Daniel's jaw tightened. You know, it's not about exclusion, he said. It's about optics. This is an executive image event. We can't have… He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Aisha's eyes didn't move. People who look like me. He exhaled through his nose, then reached for a smile that didn't come. Let's not make it a thing. It already is, she said. You made it one the second you questioned my seat. The young intern, the one who'd gone quiet, whispered under her breath. She's right. Daniel shot her a glare sharp enough to silence her. From the next table, a man in a silver tie leaned over. Excuse me, ma'am, he said. Do you have a badge or… Aisha turned to him slowly. I don't need validation to prove ownership. He blinked, confused. Ownership of what? Her gaze didn't waver. The contract you're about to lose. Janet laughed too loud, too late. Oh, that's rich. Aisha didn't respond. She didn't have to. She simply opened her phone, swiped once, and placed it face down on the linen. A notification glowed for a second board session, active 8:47 p.m. Daniel frowned. What is that? Accountability, she said. He blinked, trying to process the word, as if he'd never heard it used as a weapon. The waiter came back, tray trembling slightly. Ma'am, they've asked if you'd step into the side room while we verify credentials. Aisha smiled. Verification takes time. Truth doesn't. I'll stay right here. The waiter hesitated, then nodded slowly and walked away. Even he could feel it now, the weight of what was coming. Daniel glanced around, tone rising. We can't have disruptions tonight. Let's keep this professional. Aisha folded her hands, eyes calm, voice colder than the champagne chilling beside her. You're mistaking my presence for disruption, she said. But when power walks in quietly, the insecure call it noise. And for the first time that night, Daniel had no clever answer. 4. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. That's all it took for the air to change. Aisha didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Silence did the work. She straightened her posture, slow and deliberate, as though time itself now followed her rhythm. The ballroom's hum dulled to a nervous whisper, the kind of quiet that comes when people start realizing they might have made a mistake. Janet broke it first. This is getting awkward, she said, forcing a laugh. Aisha's eyes didn't move, only for those pretending not to see what's happening. Daniel exhaled sharply, the sound somewhere between a scoff and a sigh. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. Her tone was soft, surgical. No, Daniel. I'm showing you how small it always was. The waiter from before hovered nearby, torn between duty and conscience. Aisha noticed the tremor in his hand as he adjusted the tablecloth, trying to blend into the background. She said quietly, You can relax. You did nothing wrong. He looked startled. No one had addressed him all night, let alone with kindness. That was her gift, power that didn't humiliate. Grace, sharper than aggression. Across the room, the young intern, the same one Daniel silenced earlier, took out her phone. Not to record. Not yet. Just to hold it, thumb trembling above the screen, the way someone does when they know something important is unfolding. Janet whispered to Daniel, Should we call security? He shook his head. Not yet. She'll realize she's out of place soon enough. Aisha caught it, of course. She always caught it. She turned to them, eyes calm as glass. Out of place, she repeated, almost tasting the words. You say it like it's an observation. It's a confession. Janet blinked. Excuse me? You built a room that can't hold difference, Aisha said. Then you call the difference the problem. The intern's phone light flicked on recording now. The lens caught more than faces. It caught discomfort, hierarchy, fragility. From another table, a man whispered, Who is she? Someone else murmured, I think she's one of the partners. No, Daniel said, louder this time. She's claiming to be one. Aisha smiled faintly. Claiming is what people do when they're trying to belong. I stopped asking for that a long time ago. The waiter returned with a new tray, uncertain whether to set it down. She moved her clutch slightly, making space. You can put it here, she said gently. He nodded, eyes flicking with something close to respect. When he stepped away, she leaned back, folding her hands. Around her, the chatter had thinned into pockets of guilt and denial. Every executive suddenly busy with their drink, their phone, their menu, anything to avoid the mirror sitting across from them. Daniel cleared his throat again, trying to reassert control. Let's all stay professional, shall we? This isn't the place for politics. And Aisha's voice dropped low, steady, unhurried. It's always politics when it's about you, never when it's about us. The intern's phone caught that line, the line that would later trend across social media. Number, she belongs here. The violinist resumed playing, but the music had lost its confidence. Notes trembled where pride once rang clear. Aisha looked around the table, then down at her glass. Her reflection rippled in the water, split by the stem of the crystal half light, half shadow. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Carla. Cameras are rolling. Press conference in 10. Proceed when ready. Aisha didn't smile. She simply exhaled slow, measured, and whispered to herself, Let them finish revealing themselves. And as she lifted her gaze again, the room that had tried to shrink her was already shrinking itself. From the corner of the ballroom, a voice whispered, Are you recording this? It was the intern, Mia. Her phone was half raised, half hidden behind the flower centerpiece. Her pulse was visible in her wrist, her breathing uneven, but she couldn't look away. The lens caught Daniel leaning forward, tone heavy with authority he hadn't earned. Miss Cole, you've made your point. Let's not embarrass anyone further. Aisha didn't blink. You're assuming embarrassment belongs to me. That silence again, thick, uncomfortable, unyielding. The waiter from earlier, the one Aisha had defended, stood near the bar now, watching too. He had stopped pretending to polish glasses. Every few seconds, his eyes flicked toward her, then toward Daniel, then back again, like he was silently weighing which side of the line he wanted to stand on. Mia's friend, a junior accountant seated near the back, whispered, "You should stop." Mia shook her head. "No. Someone has to keep the truth straight." In. At the main table, Janet muttered, "This is getting ridiculous." Aisha turned slightly, her voice steady. "Ridiculous is acting like a billion-dollar partnership depends on what color walks through the door." The older men at the table stiffened. A few shifted uncomfortably, fingers drumming against crystal glass. Daniel forced a chuckle. "Let's focus on the evening. This isn't a debate." Aisha's tone was almost gentle. "It's not. It's a reminder." Across the room, another phone light flicked on. Then another. No one shouted. No one stood up. But the energy changed. Quiet rebellion replacing polite complicity. The violinists faltered again. One of them, a young black man, kept playing, eyes locked on Aisha for a split second. She gave the slightest nod, and he held the note longer than necessary, letting it tremble in the air like defiance disguised as art. The maitre d' appeared near the doorway, flanked by two hotel staff. They hesitated, waiting for Daniel's signal. He didn't give it. "Not yet." Janet whispered, "You're ruining the atmosphere." Aisha smiled faintly. "If fairness ruins your atmosphere, maybe it needed ruin." The waiter at the bar finally stepped forward, setting down his towel. "Sir," he said quietly, addressing Daniel, "she's on the list. I remember her name from the seating chart." Daniel snapped, "Stay out of this." But the man didn't back down. "You asked for truth. That's it." And Mia caught that line. She zoomed in, steady now. The red recording light blinked like a heartbeat in the dark. Janet's face flushed. "This is absurd." "No," Aisha said, cutting her off. "This is accountability walking through your door and asking for a chair." The waiter swallowed hard but stood his ground. The other staff by the door exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, Daniel wasn't the one commanding the room she was, without even trying. In the back, a woman in a silver gown leaned toward her husband. "I think she's someone important." He nodded slowly. "She doesn't sound like someone guessing." Aisha reached for her phone again. This time, she didn't hide it. She tapped once, and her assistant's voice came through in a discreet earpiece. "We're live on the internal feed, ma'am. Executives from all divisions are watching." Aisha whispered, "Perfect. Let them see what respect looks like in its rawest form." Daniel's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced down, eyes narrowing. Then another buzz. Then Janet's. Notifications flashing. Board review channel active executive dinner feed live. Janet's jaw tightened. "You're streaming this?" Aisha didn't answer. She didn't have to. The entire ballroom felt smaller, heavier, as if every chandelier light had turned into a spotlight, and every gaze was suddenly reflection, not judgment. Mia lowered her phone, whispering to herself. She's not fighting. She's reminding them who she is. Daniel's patience cracked first. "I've had enough," he said, pushing back his chair. The sound of it scraped against marble like a warning shot. "Someone call security." The matron hesitated at the doorway, uncertain. He'd seen her calm before. He could feel it now, that quiet confidence that didn't fit inside the hierarchy he served. Still, he gestured for two hotel guards to step forward. Aisha didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply rested her hand on the tablecloth, fingertips tracing the edge of her untouched plate. "Sir," the taller guard said quietly, "is there a specific issue?" Daniel gestured toward Aisha, voice tightening. "She's trespassing, disrupting the event." Aisha spoke before the guard could. "No, I'm not disrupting. I'm attending. You're just not used to what that looks like." Hull. The younger guard froze, eyes darting to the live camera, still blinking red near Mia's table. He knew this wasn't just dinner anymore. Daniel's voice rose, sharper now. "I don't care who's watching. Remove her." Aisha turned her gaze to him, calm as ever. "You'll regret that sentence before dessert." A murmur rippled through the room. Phones vibrated under napkins. Executives texted each other discreetly. "Do you know who she is?" "Something's happening online." "I blew." Janet stood, clutching her clutch-like armor. "This is unacceptable. She's hijacking a corporate event." Aisha smiled faintly. "Unacceptable is pretending. Diversity is your brand while exclusion is your habit." Gasps scattered around the table. One of the board members at the end, a man with gray temples and quiet authority, tilted his head, recognizing her. He whispered to his wife, "That's Cole Foods. She's the one feeding half this partnership." Janet froze mid-breath. Daniel didn't notice he was too busy gesturing for security to move. "Ma'am, please stand," said the taller guard, voice low. Aisha rose slowly, not because they asked her to, but because it was time. Every motion deliberate. Every second, a statement. She adjusted her blazer, lifted her chin. "Tell me something," she said to Daniel. "When you said executive dinner, did you mean leadership or just familiarity?" He frowned. "What difference does it make?" She met his eyes. Leadership requires vision. Familiarity just wants to see its reflection. The guard stepped back slightly. Even he felt it. That shift. That invisible transfer of power that couldn't be reversed. Mia's phone captured it all. Daniel's clenched jaw, Janet's trembling fingers, the board member's dawning realization. Daniel tried one last time. "You're finished here." Aisha tilted her head, voice soft but lethal. "Funny. That's exactly what I came to tell you." Janet scoffed. "You can't talk to him like that." "I can," Aisha said, "because the company you work for doesn't exist without mine." The ballroom went still. The violinist stopped mid-bow again. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Aisha turned toward the guards, her tone gentle. "You don't have to do this. You're just following orders. But know this, every order has a name attached. Make sure it's not yours on the report." The taller guard hesitated, then nodded subtly. They both stepped back. Daniel's composure shattered. "This is insane. You think you can walk in here and—" "I already did," she said, "and I'm staying." Her phone buzzed once more. A new message from Carla. Board call logged. Livestream hits 8 Kelvin's viewers. Executives tuning in from HQ. Aisha slid her phone across the table, the screen still glowing. Daniel saw his own reflection in it, small, distorted, framed by her calm. "You're live, Daniel," she said quietly. "Say that sentence again." He didn't. He couldn't. And for the first time all night, no one in that golden room dared to breathe. Aisha stood perfectly still as Daniel's words dissolved into silence. The livestream notification blinked on every phone in the room, executive dinner feed public. Dozens of viewers were joining every second. Her assistant's voice whispered softly in her earpiece. "You're trending. HQ just joined the stream." Aisha smiled barely. "Good. They should see what leadership looks like from the floor up." Daniel's voice cracked the quiet. "What the hell are you doing?" "Something overdue," Aisha said. She picked up her phone, tapped twice. The ballroom's main projector screen, the one meant for tonight's slideshow, flickered to life. A company logo appeared. Cole Foods International. Then, under it, her own name. Aisha Emicole, founder, chief executive officer. The air changed again, but this time, it wasn't discomfort. It was disbelief. Janet's lips parted. Daniel's color drained. Someone whispered, "Wait, she's the Cole?" The violinist stopped mid-note. "Yes," Aisha said, voice calm but resonant, carrying across the hall. "The same Cole whose products you've served in every one of your restaurants. The same Cole who negotiated your last 3 food distribution deals. The same Cole who holds the contract you're about to renew or not." "Oh?" She let the words settle, the weight of them heavier than the chandeliers above. Daniel stammered, This doesn't make sense. You can't just—" "I can," Aisha said, "because this dinner isn't your stage. It's my audit." Gasps rippled through the guests. Phones lifted higher. The intern Mia's camera trembled, catching the exact moment Daniel realized the room no longer belonged to him. Aisha turned toward the staff who had hesitated earlier. "You've been told I didn't belong. But what you're seeing tonight, that's what belonging looks like when it's earned, not granted." The taller security guard exhaled, stepping back fully. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I think everyone understands now." Janet tried to recover, her voice shaking. "Well, if you're really who you say you are, why didn't you announce yourself?" Aisha's eyes flicked toward her. "Because real power doesn't need introduction. It just waits and watches who you become when you think it's not in the room." The audience murmured, not out of gossip now, but guilt. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He glanced down, pale. New message. Contract review. Suspended pending behavior report. His jaw locked. You can't just end a deal like that." Aisha smiled, serene. "I already have." Her assistant's voice came through again, crisp and composed. All partnerships under your signature have been frozen. Public announcement scheduled for midnight. Aisha closed her phone. Consider this a professional courtesy. Most people don't get to see the reason for their downfall before it's written. Janet's chair creaked. You're serious? Aisha's gaze didn't soften. Janet, I don't perform seriousness. I am it. The intern's camera captured every face in that moment. Fear, shock, shame, awe. The clip would later flood every feed online, captioned simply, she didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. The room stood frozen as Aisha gathered her clutch, sliding her phone inside with steady grace. I didn't come here to make a scene, she said. I came to see who'd still recognize me when the name tags were gone. Then, turning toward Daniel, she added, you said this dinner was for executives only. I suppose you were right, which is why I'm staying and you're not. No one clapped. No one dared move. Even the chandelier seemed to hum softer, as if bowing. And in that stillness, Aisha Cole, the woman they tried to erase, reclaimed the entire room without raising a single decibel. For a moment, it was pure silence. Not the awkward kind, the sacred kind. The kind that comes after truth finally lands and no one can deny its weight. Aisha remained standing, hand lightly resting on the back of her chair. The screen behind her still glowed, with her name Aisha M. Cole CEO, Cole Foods International. 3 words that rewrote the last 20 minutes of judgment. The violinist was the first to move. He lifted his bow again, playing a slow, low note, something somber yet proud. One by one, heads turned toward him, then toward her. Janet sank into her seat, her voice barely held together. I didn't realize. Aisha looked at her unblinking. That was the point. You never do. Daniel stood frozen, lips parted but no sound escaping. He looked smaller now, not because she grew, but because the illusion around him had finally collapsed. The waiter, the same one who had hesitated earlier, stepped forward, hands clasped. Miss Cole, he said softly, I'm sorry about before. I was just following procedure. Aisha turned toward him, voice calm. Following orders isn't the same as following respect. You remember that tonight. He nodded, eyes glassy. Thank you, Mom. The camera still streamed. Thousands were watching executives, employees, interns across the country. The chat on the live feed scrolled faster than the chandelier lights could flicker. She's the real deal. That's leadership. Grace over noise. Mia, still recording, whispered to her friend, do you feel that? Like the whole room just changed gravity. Aisha exhaled slowly, letting the tension dissolve. She didn't smile, not quite, but there was warmth in her stillness now, like a storm realizing it had passed. One of the older board members stood. He buttoned his jacket, posture straight, and gave a small nod. Miss Cole, he said, voice low but firm, on behalf of this organization, we owe you an apology. Aisha met his gaze. No, she said gently. You owe yourselves reflection. I've already forgiven you. I had to, otherwise I wouldn't have survived long enough to stand here. That line echoed. Even Daniel looked down. For once there was no defense, no performance left to give. The maitre d' returned quietly. His demeanor changed. Miss Cole, would you like us to continue serving? Yes, she said. But this time, serve everyone the same way. A few guests chuckled nervously, not mockery this time, but release. The kind that comes when fear breaks into understanding. Janet looked up again, tears forming. You really canceled it? The whole contract? Aisha paused, meeting her eyes. I canceled tolerance. The contract was just paperwork. The violinist shifted key, something lighter now. The kind of melody that belongs to redemption. The younger intern, Mia, put her phone down and stood. Her voice trembled, but carried. Miss Cole, thank you, she said, for staying, for showing us how quiet power works. Aisha nodded once. Never confuse quiet for weak. Stillness is where storms learn their balance. A murmur of agreement swept across the tables. Even the chandeliers seemed to gleam warmer, as though the room itself had bowed in apology. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Carla. HQ approved the board's public statement. They're naming you keynote speaker for next quarter's summit. Aisha locked her screen, slipped the phone back into her clutch, and whispered more to herself than anyone else. Recognition isn't given. It's remembered. Then, softly, She returned to her chair, the same one they tried to deny her, and sat, unbothered, radiant, complete. For the first time all evening, no one questioned her seat. They only waited for her to speak again. By the time dessert was served, the world had already taken its seat. Phones buzzed in every corner of the ballroom. Notifications poured in faster than the waiters could refill the champagne. On every screen, the same headline flashed. Black CEO confronts corporate bias at $2. 5B executive dinner without raising her voice. Clips of Aisha's calm defiance spread like fire through marble halls and glass offices. Within 20 minutes, her words, "Real power doesn't need introduction," were trending on every platform. In the hotel kitchen, staff gathered around a small monitor, eyes wide. "She didn't even shout," one whispered. Another replied, "She didn't need to." She just looked at them and everything changed. At Whole Foods headquarters, hundreds of employees paused their night shift to watch the live stream. When Aisha's title appeared on screen, someone in logistics yelled, "That's our boss," and the whole room erupted in applause. For once, they weren't cheering for the position, they were cheering for what it stood for. Meanwhile, in Daniel's office downtown, his assistant stared at his phone in disbelief as internal emails started flooding in. "Need to discuss tonight's optics. Board requesting review. Harsh statement pending." Daniel, still seated in that ballroom, read the same messages arriving on his watch, each one colder than the next. Back at the table, Aisha noticed the shift. The same people who had looked away minutes ago now couldn't look anywhere else. One guest, a quiet man from finance, leaned forward. "Miss Cole, I'll be honest. I've been in this industry 25 years. I've never seen anyone handle a room like that." Aisha's expression didn't change. "That's because rooms like this weren't built for handling, they were built for proving." Mia, the intern, was still streaming. The comments under her live feed scrolled like a wave. She handled it with grace. "This is what accountability looks like. Every woman in corporate needs to see this. Black excellence in real time." Evening news anchors were already scripting segments. "A moment of quiet resistance," one called it. "The power of composure," said another. Janet sat still, watching her own reflection in the half-empty glass of wine. "It's everywhere now," she murmured. Aisha nodded slowly. Truth travels fast when it's been silenced long enough. Outside the hotel, reporters were arriving. Lights flashed through the grand windows, but Aisha didn't flinch. She was still seated, posture impeccable, presence unbothered. A reporter's voice echoed faintly through the door. "Miss Cole, can we get a statement?" Aisha turned to the maitre d'. "Please tell them the statement's already been made." He nodded, the hint of a smile tugging at his professional calm. He understood now this wasn't a scandal. It was a reckoning. Inside, the waiter approached again with a final gesture of respect. "Miss Cole, would you like me to clear the table?" She shook her head gently. "No, leave it. Let them sit with what they served." Across social media, edits of the scene were already circulating. Her rising from the chair, her voice calm, unwavering. The line that had cut through the noise, "Leadership isn't who speaks loudest, it's who speaks last and still sounds like grace." By midnight, the hotel's PR department issued an official statement. "We regret the treatment of Miss Aisha M. Cole and stand committed to equity, inclusion, and respect." But the damage, or maybe the awakening, was already done. Every executive who'd been in that room would spend the next day watching themselves through the eyes of millions. And as the city lights shimmered outside the ballroom windows, Aisha remained seated, the quiet center of a storm that had already changed direction, and this time, it was blowing in her favor. Long after the camera stopped flashing, the sound of the violin lingered faint, fading, but still alive. Aisha sat there, motionless, eyes fixed on the glass of water before her. The ballroom had emptied halfway. The chatter was replaced by whispers. Yet inside her, it was quiet in a different way, not silence, but peace hard-earned. She remembered another room, another table, 10 years earlier. Different suit, same tone. Aisha had been a junior executive back then, bright, precise, invisible. She'd spent weeks preparing a presentation that her supervisor later presented as his own. She'd stood at the back of that boardroom while they praised his leadership, her slides glowing behind him. She remembered the ache in her throat when she tried to speak and was told, "Don't interrupt, sweetheart. You'll get your turn someday." It never came. That day, she walked out, took the elevator to the street, and promised herself one thing. When I build my own table, no one will have to earn a seat by surviving humiliation. Now, years later, she had done exactly that. A faint smile crossed her face, not satisfaction, but remembrance. Every calm word tonight, every silent stare, every unshaken breath, they weren't restraint. They were proof. Proof that she had mastered the art of not letting anger rewrite her integrity. Her phone buzzed once more. A message from Carla. Press is calling this the dinner of dignity. You made history tonight. Aisha stared at the screen. History was never what she wanted. Change was. She typed back, let's make sure the next dinner doesn't need one. The waiter approached again, voice hesitant. Miss Cole, would you like me to close the doors now? She looked up, soft eyes meeting his. No, leave them open. It's time some light got in here. Outside, flashes from the press cameras cut through the dimmed chandeliers, but they no longer felt invasive. They felt like daylight, spilling through a place that had hidden too long in its own reflection. Aisha rose, collected her clutch, and glanced once more at the screen, still glowing faintly with her name. It wasn't ego, it was evidence. As she walked toward the exit, she caught sight of her reflection in the glass doors, the same reflection that had once looked uncertain, hungry for approval. Now it stood tall, unshaken, defined by grace more than victory. Her inner voice whispered the one she used to silence when fear got loud. Dignity isn't reaction, it's design. And she understood why she never raised her voice. Because for people like her, raised in rooms that never wanted them to exist, speaking softly was an act of revolution. As she stepped into the corridor, the sound of her heels echoed not defiant, just certain. Every step said what words never could. I belong. Not because they allowed me, but because I decided I do. Behind her, the door stayed open, light pouring into the ballroom that once rejected it. The same room that had tried to shrink her now carried her name in its silence. By morning, the city had already chosen its side. News outlets flooded every screen with the same clip. Aisha Cole standing in the ballroom, unshaken, unraised voice, the picture of composed authority. The headline read, Grace Under Fire, the Black CEO who redefined corporate power. At 7 a.m., Cole Foods headquarters overflowed with reporters. Employees walked in taller that day, as if her calm had become part of their uniform. The reception desk was covered in flowers, not for apology, but for pride. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel sat alone in his corner office, blinds drawn. His inbox was full. Board suspension pending. PR request for formal apology. Contract voided, ethics clause triggered. He replayed the footage on mute over and over, watching himself unravel in front of millions. The sound wasn't necessary. The image was indictment enough. Janet had already resigned. Her statement read, We must listen when silence speaks louder than power. The hotel released another press announcement, this time longer, humbler. Effective immediately, all staff will undergo inclusive leadership training. We thank Ms. Cole for her grace and her example. Aisha read it while sipping her morning tea by the window of her penthouse office. Carla entered carrying a tablet. CNN, Forbes, and The Times all want exclusives. Do you want me to set something up? Aisha shook her head. No interviews. Let the story breathe. It doesn't need my voice. It already found its own. Carla smiled. You realize you've changed how every corporate dinner will look from now on? Aisha glanced out at the skyline sunlight slicing through skyscraper glass. Good. Maybe next time they'll see the seat before they see the skin. Her assistant hesitated. You're not angry? Aisha exhaled, slow and steady. Anger's easy. Accountability's work. I prefer the work. Across social media, number She Belongs Here trended for a second straight day. Clips of her quote, Real power doesn't need introduction, played over soundtracks of soft piano and applause. Even the young intern, Mia, had been invited for interviews. She had captioned her viral post with one line, I didn't film a scandal, I filmed history. By noon, investors began calling. Not to question, to congratulate. Whole Foods' market value had risen 8% overnight. Partners sent messages of solidarity. Rival CEOs quietly drafted memos about inclusion that read suspiciously like apologies. Aisha leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment. She thought of her younger self again, the girl who once left a boardroom humiliated. And she smiled. Not out of victory, but recognition. Justice, she realized, wasn't about payback. It was about design building something strong enough that silence could still sound like thunder. Her phone buzzed. A new message from the board of directors. Formal invitation. Executive Summit 2025 keynote speaker, Miss Aisha M. Cole. She read it, then set the phone down without a word. Carla asked softly, "You'll attend?" Aisha nodded. "Of course. I still have a seat, and this time it already has my name on it." Fordham. Outside, the morning sun poured across the city, bright and relentless. For everyone who had watched her the night before, it wasn't just another news story. It was a mirror, and the reflection wasn't hers anymore. It was theirs. Night returned to the city quietly, no press, no headlines, just light spilling across the skyline like a slow apology. Aisha stood by her office window, 40 floors above the noise, watching the city she'd built part of and been rejected by in the same breath. The world had moved on to new stories, new scandals, but hers stayed not because of outrage, but because of balance. She hadn't fought to prove she was powerful. She had shown that power never needed permission. Her reflection glimmered faintly against the glass. Not just her generations of quiet women behind her, the ones who'd been told to wait their turn, know their place, stay in line. She whispered softly, "We waited long enough." Carla entered, setting down tomorrow's press schedule. "You've got a clean week ahead," she said. Aisha smiled. "Finally, let's give silence its turn to speak." Carla hesitated at the door. "You know, I watched that video again last night. The way you stood there, it didn't look angry. It looked inevitable." Aisha turned, eyes soft. That's what dignity is. It doesn't rush. It just arrives when the noise has tired itself out. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city below filled the space, distant horns, traffic lights, life continuing, somehow quieter, somehow better. Aisha walked to her desk, where a single envelope waited thick, embossed, the seal of the National Business Association. She opened it slowly. Inside was a plaque, and a short note handwritten by the chairwoman herself, for redefining leadership through composure. She traced the words with her thumb, then set it beside an older photo, her first small office, one desk, one borrowed computer, and a post-it note taped to the monitor. "Build what they said you couldn't." Her eyes softened. The post-it had faded, but the ink still clung on stubborn, like memory. The skyline beyond her glass shimmered, every building reflecting light from another. It reminded her of something she once told a young intern years ago. Justice isn't loud, it's consistent. It repeats itself until the world finally listens. Now, the world was listening. She stepped closer to the window, resting one hand against the cold glass. Down below, the same hotel, the Grand Regency Ballroom, stood quiet, its gold letters glinting under streetlight. They were hosting another dinner that night. Different faces, different names. But this time, at every table, there was a seat marked reserved. Not for status, for fairness. Aisha smiled just barely. "Progress," she murmured. "One table at a time." Her phone buzzed again, a notification from social media. Number "She belongs here." 24 hours later, still trending. Dignity has no volume, 2.4 million shares. She let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "If only they knew," she whispered. It never needed a volume. It only needed a moment. Carla called from the doorway. "You heading home?" "In a minute," Aisha said. "Just watching something finish what I started." The camera would fade slowly, now city lights flickering, glass reflecting gold. Aisha turning back from the window, shutting off her desk lamp. Her silhouette remained against the skyline, poised, still, unbothered. And as the screen dimmed to black, her voice lingered in the dark like a closing prayer. Power isn't in the noise. It's in the stillness after. And when that stillness carries your name, that's justice. Fade out. End title appears. Black CEO. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard.